Hi, and welcome to week one of Visioning and Goal Setting, a program, a 4-week program that I've designed as a follow-up to the free webinar that I offered a week ago around the topic of visioning and goal setting. I talked then, if you were on the call, you'll remember we talked about the importance of having a vision and knowing what it is that you want to accomplish in your life, and also having goals, because having a vision without a plan only makes the vision a wish instead of a vision, something that you're planning to have happen in your life. And so many of us, I'm afraid, are feeling stuck these days. And I don't want you to feel that way. So what we're going to be talking about for the next hour is, what does it mean to have a vision, and how then do you go about setting goals to get you where you want to go? And I want you to consider that this is all about you. It's not about anything that I have to say with regard to what your particular vision for yourself might be. It may be something that you have been putting off for a while. It may be a long lost dream that you had as a child growing up, something that you believed you were capable of doing, but life got in the way, or someone told you that you couldn't, and you simply gave up. And then life took over, and you were buffeted about by the whims and circumstances and situations that cause you to feel like you don't have any control over your life. I want to suggest to you that you absolutely do have control. And one of the things that I particularly like to talk to my clients about when we're doing one-on-one sessions and when I'm coaching someone is that attitude is everything. And if you believe that you can't do something, then you're going to prove yourself to be right. If you believe you can do something, I believe that with proper strategy and the proper attitude, you can absolutely accomplish just about anything you might set your mind to. So I like to think of it as the can-do attitude. And I created this as a model back in the time when I was going through coaching training. And it's based on my agreement with Walt Disney that if you dream it, you can do it. Now, the rest of that quote, just in case you didn't know, is Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. After all of this, and he was referring to Disneyland, started with a picture and a mouse. So if you can dream it, you can do it. Another way to say that is, if you can believe it, you can achieve it. So you can do. What does can do as an acronym mean? Well, for me, it starts with C equals create. You must create the vision for yourself. You must believe that you are capable of accomplishing something that you haven't accomplished. The author of the book that we're using as our sort of text for this course, Lynn Taylor, is the author of Goal Setting and Success, Make It Happen, The Secrets for Getting Unstuck and Achieving Your Dreams. It's available at Amazon. I'm sure you can probably get it at Barnes & Noble as well. And he doesn't talk about the can-do philosophy that I've created, but he does speak in terms of creating a vision for an ideal outcome for yourself and the life that you want, and the difference between those who believe that they can do this and those who can't. Another way to put it is simply decide what it is that you want. Making a decision is the beginning of every major change in your life. You simply have to decide. And you will hear people very often talk about major changes that they've made in their lives, transitions that they've created, and it's all started with a decision, a simple decision, and then the resolve to follow through on that decision. The A in the can-do philosophy stands for activate. Once you've created your vision, Then you have to activate your belief in your ability to achieve the outcome that you envision. You know, Jesus said, as you believe, so it shall be done unto you. And he was a master teacher of the philosophy that if you believe, you can achieve. If you actually believe in miracles, miracles can take place. And all of the miracles that he had responsibility for in the New Testament were the result of his absolute rock solid belief that he could do whatever he wanted to do because he had the power of God behind him and with him. The N in can do stands for let nothing stand in your way as you go about doing whatever it takes to make your dream a reality. In other words, eliminate limiting beliefs and negative thinking. Whatever it is that you have in mind that you want to accomplish, if you let things get in your way, you will not be able to accomplish that, whatever it is. So you must have the resolve to let nothing get in the way and go about achieving what it is that you've set your mind to with resolve and determination. The D stands for demonstrate. Demonstrate your willingness to follow through by taking action and completing assignments for yourself each day, each week, and each month, creating the momentum you need for an ultimately successful endeavor. You know, there are some philosophers who say that the universe conspires to help you get whatever it is that you want in life, but you have to demonstrate your willingness to actually have it or to be it, whatever it may be for you. In The Alchemist, a book by Paulo Coelho, there's a line about the universe conspiring to help you live out your personal legend, whatever that may be. And the whole idea is that if you are willing to follow through and do what needs to be done, the universe will, in fact, pave the way and allow you to be successful. D can also be used to demonstrate the word do, or to stand for the word do. O stands for outcome. The outcome will be the manifestation or the demonstration of your dream, along with even better things that result from your being willing to let yourself dream and going for it. So that's the can-do attitude. And what I would like for you to do is to keep that in mind. You'll be able to go back and review that. It's also available. The can-do attitude with the acronyms and the meanings are on my website. And there's a page on the timeout4teacher.com website. That's timeout4teacher.com. If you go there, you will find the can-do attitude laid out for you. You can also come back and review this video or webinar. You'll have the access to that through this class. So you can go back and review those terms anytime you need to. Can-do attitude, that's the main thing you need to have, is the can-do attitude. And then, of course, you have to have goals. You have to, however lofty your vision may be, it may feel impossible for you until and unless you've determined what exactly needs to be done to get you there. And that's where goal setting comes into place. You need to chunk it down so that you can approach it step by step and know what it is that you need to do to get you to your ultimate vision. So goals, along with visioning, using the can-do attitude, you must also be willing to set goals. And in particular, the author of our book, Lynn Taylor, says, and many people would agree with him, you need to think in terms of SMART goals. Now, most everybody on this call, I think, will already know what a SMART goal is. But let's talk a little bit about what is a SMART goal. SMART is also an acronym. Someone came up with this a number of years ago. I used to know the name of the person who did it, but it slips my mind at the moment. But he came up with this acronym SMART, standing for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So let's talk a little bit about what each of those words mean. Specific. That means something concrete. Your goal must be something that is that you can lay out in a sentence or two, that is very clear, very specific, and very concrete. That's what makes that different from a wish or a dream or something that's just sort of out there that you haven't really put words to yet. So your goal should be specific, but it should also be measurable, which means that you need to have a way to measure your success, a way to know whether you're on track or not. Now, if you were in sales, you would probably set a measurable sales goal. And you might have a goal for the end of the year, but then you would chunk it down into quarterly goals and then even monthly goals so that you could track whether or not you were on track to actually achieve your ultimate goal. So whatever your particular goal is, it needs to be measurable in some sense or other. It also needs to be attainable. Now, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily easy, but it should be within the realm of possibility. And just a far out example that comes to mind as I'm thinking about this is if you were to decide that you wanted to go to the moon. Now, that might be attainable if you have millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend with that company that is working on taking visitors to the moon for the purpose of, just because you can. That might make it more attainable, but I don't believe any of those people have actually gone anywhere yet. It's still a vision that somebody has, that someday they will be taking shuttles of people to the moon for recreational purposes. But for right now, that may not be an attainable goal. And so make sure that whatever it is that you've set out for yourself, that it's not a totally out of the realm of possibility. It needs to be a stretch. I'm recommending that you stretch yourself, but I'm not recommending that you create a goal that's impossible for you to achieve. There's nothing to be gained by that. The goal should also be relevant. That's what R stands for in SMART. Relevant means that it should mean something to you. If it doesn't mean anything to you, it's not relevant. And why would you bother? And one of the problems that I hear very often from my teacher friends especially is that sometimes their principals write their SMART goals for the year for them. And I just want to say to the principal, that's nuts. You can't write a SMART goal for somebody else. You have to write your own. You have to own them. You have to believe in them. You have to want to accomplish them. And if somebody else has written your goals for you, you're already defeated, I believe, before you've gotten started. So I don't recommend to anyone that you to undertake writing a SMART goal for someone else. This is a very personal. Whether even your work goals are personal to you and specific to you, and you don't need to have someone else telling you what to do. Your goal should also be time-bound, which means you need to give yourself a deadline. There are all sorts of studies that say when people are bound to a timeline or a deadline and they know that there's a sort of a drop-dead date by which things need to be done, that they are far more likely to actually accomplish what it is that they've set out for themselves. That's why you'll see very often sales promotions that for the final day ends at midnight. Last call, must sign up now, those kinds of things, because people will respond to limitations on time like that, whereas they won't respond if they think they have all the time in the world. So make your own SMART goal, time bound, and make sure that it's relevant, something that you care about. Along with having your SMART goals, I believe you need to have a dash of courage as well. And the reason I believe that is that very often when we are starting out on a new venture, or we've made a decision about something we want to accomplish, it's easy to think about it. It's even easy to talk to our loved ones about it, but it's often very difficult to actually undertake a particular venture. And so I think a fair amount of courage goes along with making life changing decisions. And I applaud the people who are able to undertake new ventures, and they call on that courage that they have. Theodore Roosevelt spoke of daring greatly, and author and sociologist or social worker Brene Brown has talked a lot about the importance of daring greatly. In Brene Brown's work, she talks about being brave enough to show your vulnerability. And she's written a whole book about shame and vulnerability. And she shared with Oprah Winfrey on a Oprah show a few months ago that this particular quote from Theodore Roosevelt had inspired her in a significant way and had, in fact, led to her book, which is also entitled Daring Greatly. And so for those of you who don't have the book yet, Goal Setting and Success Make It Happen by Lynn Taylor, I would like to share this quote with you. It's long. It's probably the worst run-on sentence I've ever seen, but it is powerful in the message that it carries. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory or defeat. Theodore Roosevelt. So take a dash of courage and consider, are you living large or are you living small? And is the decision that you are making about going for a vision that you've been putting off, a dream that you've had but you've not dared to undertake, is it the result of your living small? Or are you brave enough to endeavor to take on a larger vision for yourself? There's one of my favorite songs is, what would you do if you were brave? And there's a magnet on my refrigerator that says, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? What could you achieve if you knew you could not fail? What would you undertake if you knew there were no obstacles in your way? And I'm going to suggest to you that undertaking major changes very often simply requires your being bold enough to make the decision to do it. Like the bird with the parachute on his back. What's holding you back? Fear? See in this picture, the blue bird is saying to the yellow bird, let's try it once without the parachute. But you can see that the little yellow bird's still wearing his parachute because of fear. And therefore he's stuck on that limb instead of flying and soaring through the skies. It has been said that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It's also been said that if you think you can or think you can't, either way, you are correct or you're right. Henry Ford said that. And there are wonderful stories about Henry Ford and how he failed multiple times before he finally hit on the formula for Ford cars and for manufacturing, so that the average person could have an automobile. And there are stories about how he would set for his engineering teams impossible goals. He would tell them, by this time next year, I want you to blah, blah, blah. And they would look at him like he was crazy. That's not even possible, they would say. And for months, they would go about, sort of half-heartedly doing things that might have gotten them where they wanted to go. He would come in and check out, with them periodically. How's it going? We're not having any luck. Were you really asking us to do the impossible? And he would have none of it. This is something I want you to do. You will do it, and it needs to be done by. And lo and behold, as the deadline neared, they managed to invent whatever it was that they needed to invent so that they could accomplish what it was that he was determined to have them accomplish. So I'm telling you, very often it's just a matter of whether you believe you can achieve something or not. If you don't believe that you can, you won't even try. And if you don't try, you certainly won't make it. So, excuse me, if you believe you can, then I believe you can. But you must believe it. It won't matter what I believe. You must believe it to your core that you can achieve whatever it is you have in mind. And one of the things that you need is focus. It may be that right now at this particular point in time, all you really know is that you're not satisfied with how things are. But you may not be totally sure what needs to be done to fix that. So one of the things that I would suggest that you do is sit with yourself and focus. What is it about your life that isn't 100% in alignment with whatever it is you want to be doing? Focus on that and then start thinking in terms of how you can change it. You will need to take action. I love this graphic. It says dream big, set goals, and take action. You can dream as big as you want, but without action, they're still just dreams. And I suspect that part of the problem is that you're stuck. Maybe you don't know what to do. Maybe you don't know how to do it. And it is possible, I'm simply suggesting, as is the author of our book, perhaps you really don't want to do it. And I know you're thinking, wait a minute, what? Of course I want to do it. Well, maybe not. It may be that you're so comfortable with the way things are that even though you tell yourself you'd like to change, you're really kind of satisfied with the way things are. It's not awful. And so you really don't want to stretch yourself because that would mean having to change. So if you're not achieving what it is that you've said for a long time you wanted to achieve, I would suggest that you need to explore what's holding you back. It may be that you are using the excuse that you're too busy. It may be even guilt over having delayed your goal as long as you have. Sometimes that guilt keeps us stuck. And the longer we feel like we've not done what we were supposed to be doing and procrastinated, the guiltier we feel. And the guiltier we feel, the more stuck we are. So that's just a possibility. And another possibility is that you are simply stuck between what you know and what's comfortable and what's unknown, even though it's something you think you really want. It's unknown. And, there is that old saying, that cliche, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. And if you haven't been really careful about what you have wished for and what you've dreamed of and considered all of the possibilities, you may find yourself in a situation that you didn't anticipate and that doesn't make you happy. So you need to really think in terms of being intentional about what it is that you want. And to overcome all of these obstacles, you simply need to decide to take one step at a time toward whatever goal it is that you've set for yourself. And I suggest that you ask yourself, what is the objective that you've set out for yourself? What's your ultimate vision for yourself? What would be the first step that you would need to take? How do you need to chunk it down so that it's manageable? And the most important question, and the one you really need to consider and think about over this next week, is it something that you really want? Or is it something that your younger self wanted, and now your older self, your wiser self, maybe you don't want it anymore, and you have simply thought you wanted it out of habit. So I am going to suggest to you that you consider whether or not the goals you have in mind, the vision for yourself that you might have in mind, is that something you really want, or is it something that you have just gotten in the habit of believing you wanted because your 21-year-old self told you that? That's an important question to be asking. And you need to consider, is your objective clear or is it foggy? And if it's not clear, you need to snap it into focus. Stephen Covey said, we must begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. So before you can set out on your journey, you need to decide what it is that you want to accomplish and what will it look like when you get there. If you start out on a trip to the West Coast, let's say you want to go to California and you're in Virginia, and you haven't looked at a map or set your GPS, and you just set off and start driving, you're likely to wind up anywhere except California. There are lots of places you could land, but you haven't gotten where you intended to be. Lewis Carroll has said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And that just leaves us feeling lost and confused and unsure and perplexed, unclear, disoriented, and bewildered. Those are not good things to be feeling. And yet, I suspect that lots of people are going through their days every day feeling very much like these words: lost, confused, unsure, unclear, perplexed, disoriented, and bewildered. You don't have to be one of those people, but you do have to think very seriously about where it is you want to go. And you need to consider that words are powerful and thoughts are things. Mike Dooley is responsible for coming up with the saying, I think he's written a book, Thoughts Become Things. And they absolutely do. Everything you've ever accomplished is the result of a thought, an idea, something that came to your mind. And then you began to flesh that idea out. It either resonated as something that you wanted, or perhaps something you didn't want, but you spent so much time thinking about it, you manifested it anyway. That happens. And then you have the reality, the manifestation, if you would, or the demonstrate. Some people refer to it as the demonstration of what it is that you have thought about. We do this all the time, either consciously or subconsciously. For the last 15 years or so, I've been working on my thoughts using a more conscious and intentional approach. But I'm very aware that I have a subconscious full of messages and thoughts that are not necessarily in my own best interest. This usually happens because we have been imprinted by comments and lessons that we learned as children before we actually had words to articulate our thoughts, and before we paid attention to how powerful our thoughts may be. I absolutely contend that we are born knowing what it is that we are supposed to do while we're on this planet. I believe that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience right now, and that we come into this physical body that we have, and we know on a very subliminal, subconscious level what it is that we're supposed to be accomplishing. That's why people are driven to discover their purpose in life, or to discover what their mission in life is. All of us are hungry to know, why are we here? This has been the eternal question that people have been asking since the beginning of time. What's the point? Why are we here? What is it that I'm supposed to be accomplishing? So what happens, I believe, between the age of 0 and about 3 is that we are very aware of why we are here. And we may even say to somebody when we're 3, something about, I want to be a poet, or I want to paint, or I want to be a musician. And somebody in our life, somebody that we love and respect and we know loves and respects us, says, you can't make a living doing that. That's silly. And all of a sudden, what we knew in our heart we wanted to do becomes something that we can't do because someone that we love and respect has told us we can't. And then we carry that message with us for the rest of our lives, unless we become enlightened enough to recognize the wrong-headedness of that message and we overcome it. So what I'm suggesting to you is that words are powerful, and that you need to be mindful of the words you use as you speak to yourself as well as to others. And that you need to use words that are powerful and intentional and filled with action. Now, what I mean by that is that when you are creating your goal, I want you to be careful about saying things like, I'm going to try to do thus and such, or if such and such happens, then I will do blah, blah, blah. Because those words give you an automatic out, if you will. You can try all you want. That doesn't mean you'll accomplish what it is that you're attempting to accomplish. So make your intentions more action-oriented. I will do thus and such. I will be at my goal, whatever it may be, by March of 2015, or even March 15th of 2015. Set a date. Be very, very intentional. And remember that your words absolutely have power. If you are aware of negative thought patterns that you are engaging in during your day, I urge you to adopt a powerful, affirmative mantra, an affirmation, something that you can repeat to yourself as often as you need to, that will help you to be more positive in your outlook. One of my favorites is, all is well and proceeding in divine right order and in divine right time. And when I remember that, I feel much more peaceful and much more intentional as I move through my day. Now, the author of our book also talks about the importance of setting clear boundaries, which means that on your journey, whatever your goal may be, whatever your ultimate end point may be, you will no doubt run into obstacles. There will be things that will get in the way, and you can let them get in the way. You can let them stop you from accomplishing what it is that you want to be accomplishing, or you can decide that you are going to stay on track to the level that you can. And when he talks about boundaries, he's talking about, here's what he says: an additional benefit of clearly identifying the objective is that it helps establish boundaries on what your project does and does not include. Having those boundaries will help curb feature creep, sometimes also known as scope creep, the bane of project managers and the cause of cost spiraling out of control for countless projects. Feature creep is the tendency for just one more thing to get added to an existing project. One small thing after another gets added on until the combined weight of all of the additions threatens the success of the entire project. So for you, in whatever goal it may be that you're setting for yourself, that simply may mean that if you don't set clear boundaries as to what it is that you are willing to do and intending to do to get where it is that you want to be, you may find yourself being diverted by things that come up, and things will come up. And in fact, at first, expect the universe to be throwing obstacles your way just to make sure that you're resolved to do what it is that you want to do. It would not be unusual for you to make a decision about some life-changing event that you want to make happen in your life, some major transition that you envision. It would not be at all unusual if, as soon as you've made that decision, all sorts of things pop up to try to divert you from your ultimate goal. And you may interpret those obstacles as signs that, well, you weren't supposed to do that. I would suggest that you should interpret them as a test of your resolve. And if your resolve isn't strong enough, then you will give up. If your resolve is strong enough, you will work through whatever the obstacles are. So you need to be sure that you have clear boundaries. The author also speaks in terms of means versus ends, and says that we must refocus when the line between the means and the ends start to blur. And he says, as a reminder, the ends are your objectives. The means are the methods you use to achieve those methods. The larger the endeavor, the more likely you will encounter obstacles in achieving your objective. When this happens, you may need to come up with new and creative ways to accomplish what needs to be done in order to achieve that objective. So, Leon Trotsky was the person who wrote, "The end may justify the means as long as there is something that justifies the end." So you need to keep that in mind. That's something that you need to weigh in the overall picture of what it is that you're attempting to do. And when you are faced with obstacles, you need to adopt the Marines approach, which is to improvise, adapt, and overcome. In the book, Lynn Taylor talks about how the Marines are very often, the Marine Corps, the United States Marine Corps, very often the soldiers are thrown into situations for which they weren't necessarily trained. They are trained for almost every contingency, but there's no way that you can actually predict what every contingency might be. And so they are also trained to be ready to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Whenever they are faced with an unexpected obstacle, something that they didn't anticipate happening, they are ready to improvise, adapt as needed, and then overcome whatever that particular obstacle may be. Another idea that the author suggests is that you should consider whether your particular goal is something that you need to do yourself or whether you need to delegate. Now, in the context of this general conversation about visioning your future, I absolutely believe you need to do that yourself. However, there may be certain aspects of your ultimate vision for yourself that you don't have the skills, talents, or abilities to do by yourself. So you need to perhaps get help or even, in some cases, delegate. An example would be if your ultimate goal has something to do with a business or a career endeavor. And it may be that you need a particular set of skills that you don't have, and it would be time consuming and costly for you to go and get those skills right now. So it may very well be that you want to solicit help from someone, or even delegate a part of what it is that you're hoping to accomplish to someone who's more qualified to accomplish it than you. And an example, I mean, this may be not the greatest example, but it is an example that comes to mind of something that I've done recently to delegate in my own business. I needed a Word document converted into a PDF document, and I wanted it to look slick and professional, and so I needed a graphic designer. And I had no idea where to go to find such a person, and I had limited funds, so I wasn't sure I could even afford to have the work done. But what I ended up doing, I learned through the various and sundry mechanisms that I've engaged in as a new entrepreneur. I learned that there are programs out there, services out there that allow us to have people who are experts in certain areas do certain things for us. So, for example, in this case, I went to a company called Odesk, and I put up a bid, and I said, I have a 3-page document that I need a graphic designer to create a professional looking document from. I would like to spend no more than $25. And within a few minutes, or at least within half a day, I had a half a dozen bids. Now, some people wanted to charge by the hour, and so I did not pay attention to those bids. And one person wanted to charge a minimum of $225, which, of course, was ridiculous in light of what I had put up as my bid. But there were several people, all of them in India, who were willing to do the work for $25. And so I engaged one of those individuals. We determined a timeline that he would observe, that he would get the work back to me within a certain number of days. And he went off and did his work and brought it back to me, and it was perfect. And when Odesk asked me if the project was done, if I was ready to release payment, they also asked, do you want to tip the person extra? And so I gave some extra money to indicate my appreciation. That's an example of how you might delegate to somebody else some part of what it is that you're hoping to accomplish. Now, the author also speaks in terms of sunk cost, and this was a new term to me. I was not familiar with sunk cost, but basically what he is referring to, and in this case, it's in the context of a business context. But it could be, build a building project if you're building a house or a second home somewhere. You need to consider how much money you've already sunk into your goal, into your project, whatever it may be, and whether or not continuing is cost effective, or if you need to cut your losses and move on. So basically, that's what considering sunk costs means. And that's, again, totally personal. It totally depends on how much you have in terms of monetary resources, if the costs are in terms of money, or time. Your sunk cost might be in terms of time. And in some cases, you may find yourself feeling so stuck that with a particular goal that you decide to just cut it loose and let it go. It's the sunk cost or things you will never recoup, whether it's time or money. And so you need to determine whether continuing on is worth it or whether you need to just, let go. Only you can decide what success for you will look like. Nobody can tell you that. That's up to you. And so I'm going to suggest that this week, as we move into week 2 of this course, that you consider deeply what success for you will look like. What is it that you want to accomplish? Go back to your SMART goals as you need to, remembering to be specific and measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound with regard to every aspect of what your goals will be with regard to your particular vision. The author indicates or recommends, and I certainly agree with him, that you need to write your goals down. And even more than that, you need to write them with a pen on a piece of paper with your hand, not on the computer. There is something very special about the brain connection with your hand, the pen, and the paper. So write your goals down, freely think and just write, free flow. Write what it is that you want to achieve. Don't stop yourself with the shoulds, woulds, coulds, if onlys, all of the things that could stop you from writing down what it is that your heart really desires for you. And write it down, and then keep a copy of it next to your bed so that you can read it every night and first thing in the morning. Now, why would you bother to read it at night? Well, there is a science that says that our brains undertake a subconscious endeavor to work through whatever it is that we thought about last as we were going to sleep. And I know this is true because there have been times in my life when I was working on papers for graduate school, and I would be so tired because I had stayed up late the night before, and my brain would just sort of give out, and I would think, maybe I just need to nap for a little bit. And I would go lie down, and I would wake up 20 minutes later or half an hour later, not only feeling refreshed and rested, but with new thoughts and ideas about the paper. Because when I went to lie down to take the nap, all of the thoughts about the paper were still in my mind. And my brain automatically sorted through what I was thinking about as I went to sleep. And I would wake up very, very often feeling brilliant because all of a sudden I knew what to do with the next direction in the paper. I don't know that it's a sign of brilliance. I just think it's part of the science of our brains that we are just beginning to crack open as a brand new science. So The point is you need to be writing your goals down and then reading them every night before you go to bed, and then reading them in the morning as you get up and start your day. You can make it happen. Whatever it is for you, you can make it happen. But you need to be intentional. You need to have those goals. You need to know where it is that you want to go. Otherwise, remember, any road will take you there. So are you clear yet about what it is that you want to accomplish? If not, I challenge you to think about that this week and consider what it is that you really intend to do. Now, for those of you who would like to, you can download your homework. The homework is not something I'm going to be checking, but there is homework if you're inclined to want to work through it, and it's downloadable from your private client login site. That's the site that you would have been given access to when you paid for this course. So I urge you to go and log in and download your homework and be working on that, so that you will be thinking more deeply about what it is that you envision for yourself and how you may be thinking in terms of getting yourself there. And between now and next week, I urge you to deeply think on and reflect upon what it is that you really want to achieve. What were the reasons that you were drawn to this course? Write it down on a piece of paper. Journal, if you would. That may be another way for you to get really clear about what it is that you're attempting to accomplish. And in the meantime, I encourage you to email me with any questions or thoughts, or if you would like feedback, I'm more than happy to provide feedback for you. If you need support, I am here for you between now and next week. You can email me at kittyboitnott@boitnottcoaching.com, and I will be more than happy to assist you as you work your way through this program. At this point, though, we've been going for about 50 minutes, and I am thinking that we are complete for this particular program. I urge you to go back. You'll have access to this webinar link. You can go back and review it, especially review the can-do method, or at least go to the timeoutforteacher.com and look at can do again. And good luck to you this week. I am so excited that you have undertaken this program and that we are working together on helping you get clear about what it is that you want to be accomplishing. And I wish you well, and we'll talk with you again next week. Enjoy the rest of your evening.